Hey everybody, thanks for joining me for another Unity tutorial. In this video I am going to be working on how to create a manager to manage the patrolling and the targeting scripts we made in the last two videos. If you haven't watched those two videos yet, I would recommend it jumping into this video. It's essentially the same thing, just managing both of those. Off camera I created a controller script that I'm basically going to add the patrolling and the targeting script to, because I didn't do that in the last video, and I totally didn't even think about doing that, but it's a lot easier because right now, to actually make them work, you have to disable and enable the actual script components. So I'm going to basically combine the scripts into this. All I did in this script was basically just created two public floats for the patrol and the targeting speed, two floats for the minimum and maximum values, two bools for the patrol and targeting, and I also created some private variables that I set in the start method down here. The patrol equaling to the object with the tag player, and then the enemy sprite equal to the this game object that the script is on with the component sprite render. And then I also made it to where in the update method, if the patrol is equal to true and if the target is equal to true, and this is where I'm basically going to add the targeting and the patrolling scripts too. So in the targeting scripts, all I'm going to do is copy all the stuff in the update method, and I'm going to go to the AI controller and I'm going to paste it not into the patrol, but into the target. And then, I have to fix the names too. I'm just going to fix them down here. So, this needs to be the target speed. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it into these down below. And I'm going to make this a capital. And then, now after that's done, I'm going to basically do the exact same thing, but for patrol. So I'm going to go to the patrol script and I'm going to copy all this stuff in the update method. I'm going to go to the AI controller and I'm going to paste it into here. And then I am going to change this to being patrol speed. And then I am going to save the script. So now if I go out, I can set it up to where I'm going to make the patrol speed be 3, the target speed be 5, the max value be this. Actually, this is the min value, so I'm going to put this in the min value, and the max value. Then I am going to check on patrol, because I want patrol to be set on startup. So actually, in the void start method, I'm going to set it to where patrol is going to be equal to true. And I also want target to be equal to false. So you should be patrolling on startup and then targeting when I set that in a manager. And now since I set it up this way, I could technically do that in this script, but I want to put that in its own script just for organization purposes. And there's also one more thing I actually want to do in the AI controller, and that's for targeting. I also want to set a bounce, and I didn't do this in the last video. So all I want to do is essentially, if I basically want to do this stuff up here, so basically this, but instead of making it to where it's going to be equal to enemy sprite, flip false, I want it to be equal to the min value. And so I want it to be equal to the min value. So I'm going to do the transform dot position is going to be equal to, and min value is a float and transform dot position is a vector 3. So I have to make transform dot position equal a vector 3. So I'm going to apply the min value float within a vector 3. So I'm going to create a vector 3. I'm going to call this min clamp, and I'm going to set this equal to a new vector 3. And that vector 3 I'm going to make be the min value along the x, 0 along these I'm going to make it be the transform dot position dot y. And I'm also going to have transform dot position dot z. Then I'm going to have it be to where the transform dot position is going to be equal to the min clamp. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it and paste it into the line of code below. Except I'm going to make this be max clamp. and I'm going to make that be the max value. So now the targeting is set up for clamping, so you can't go too far to the left and right. And now I'm going to start on the manager. So I'm going to remove the target controller, and I'm going to remove the patrolling controller. And then if I click play, you will see that the enemy should start patrolling. And then if I go out, and then enable targeting, now the enemy is going to start targeting the player with a little bit more speed, since that's what I set it to. But he can't go too far over here, and he can't go off the bounds over here. So now I'm going to add a component. I'm going to call this AIManager. I'm going to create an add. Now within the script, I'm going to be doing two major things. I am going to first be tracking the distance. So I'm going to be creating a public float. I'm going to be calling this distance. Then I'm also going to be creating another public float. But I'm going to make this float be an array. So to do that, I just do an open and close brackets, and then I'm going to call this range. Now, in the update method, I'm going to basically need to do a distance formula. So the formula to calculate distance is that distance is equal to the square root of 0.1x minus 0.2x squared plus 0.1y minus 0.2y squared. So I know that might seem pretty complicating, but when you break it down, it's actually kind of simple. So we want the distance to equal that. So we're going to be using a nice function called Mathf.Pow, because I'm going to be dividing it into two parts. I'm going to be basically taking the 0.1x minus 0.2x square and then squaring it. And then I'm going to do the same thing but for the y. So I'm going to be doing 0.1y minus 0.2y squared. And then I'm going to be doing a third line of code, basically making it to where the distance is going to equal to the square root of both of those added together. So I'm doing Mathf.Pow, and I'm going to be making this be the 0.1. So I'm going to be basically needing to make a reference. I'm going to make it a private, and I'm going to make this a game object. I'm going to be calling it player. And then the start method, I'm going to be setting player equal to GameObject.FindGameObjectWithTag, and I want that to be the tag player. Then I'm going to be doing Mathf.Pow, and I'm going to be doing the Player.transform.position along the x value, because this is the x, and I'm going to be subtracting the enemy's transform.position. So I'm going to be doing transform, because with the lowercase t would be the transform that the script is on, which would be the enemy. And then since I did a lowercase t for transform here, but it's behind player, it's basically the transform within the player game object, which I set to the game object with the tag player. So I'm going to be and also if you do that, then you need to make sure on player he has the tag right here, player. And it's a nice tag that's actually built into Unity. But if you also want to create a new tag and then make it that name per tag, you can just click the add tag button. Now I'm going to be doing minus the transform.position.x. And now that's why I made it Mathf.Pow, because now I can actually square it here by doing comma and then 2, and then ending it off. Then I want to control D to duplicate it, and then I want to do the player's transform.position.y minus the transform.position.y, and so basically along the y, and then I still want to square it. Now I want to do the distance, and then set the distance equal to Mathf.Sqrt, basically meaning sq square, and then rt meaning root. And then now this only takes one float value, which is basically what you want to find the square root of. And what I want to find the square root of is both of these values up above. So I'm going to basically put both of these values within variables. So I'm going to create, and since it has to be a float, I'm going to need to put these within float variables. So I'm going to do float and then whatever I want to name these floats. So I want to name it, like, let's say power x, because you're finding the power on the x, and I'm going to be setting that equal to Mathf.Pow. And then I'm doing the same thing but down below, but I'm going to be doing power y. I'm going to be setting that equal to the power along the y. And then I'm going to be set distance equal to Mathf.Sqrt, and I'm going to be doing the power x plus the power y. And then with that, that's how you calculate distance. And just to simplify this, I'm actually going to put these away within a region. I'm going to be calling this region distance formula. And then down below it, you have to do end region. And then with those two lines of code, if I click the little minus button that's by the region, it'll basically collapse it into this distance formula. So now if I save it, then go out, and then look at the manager that's on the player, it'll, not the player, the enemy, it'll show the distance, and it'll also show the range. And now if I click play, the distance is always going to be how far I am away from the enemy. So I'm just going to not maximize this. And I'm going to show that the distance is slowly going to go up as he goes farther away, and as I get closer to him, the distance is going to be getting smaller, all the way going to 0 when I'm on top of him, because then I'm basically within his value. And it's along the x and the y, and it basically tracks his distance. So now I'm going to be setting up the range as well. So I'm going to enter to go down to here, and then I'm going to be now setting up to where if the player is within a certain range of him, then he will be targeting the player, but if the player is out of that range, then he will be patrolling. So I'm going to do if, and I need to be to where if the player dot or actually not player, but I'm going to be doing if the distance, which is how far I am away from the enemy, is greater than, because I need to be if the distance is greater than the minimum, but less than the maximum. So I'm going to do if the distance is greater than range, and then in these brackets, I'm going to be doing the first, or the element 0, so I'm going to be putting a 0, and then I'm going to be doing two ands, the distance is less than the maximum, which is the range, with the element 1. So basically, if I'm within range 0 and range 1, I want it to be to where the enemy is going to be targeting the player. So I need to basically reference the AI controller. So I'm going to be creating a, and actually that is on the enemy, so I can just do a private AI controller. And I'm going to be calling this AI, and I'm going to be setting AI equal to GameObject.GetComponent. And I'm going to make that component be the AI controller. And then if you're within that range, if you're within that range, I want the AI.target to be equal to true, and I want the AI patrol to be equal to false. So the enemy isn't targeting or isn't patrolling, he's targeting. Then I'm going to also do an else, basically meaning that if you're out of that range, I want the AI target to be equal to false, so the enemy is not targeting the player. And then I'm going to also do AI.patrol is equal to true, so then the enemy is now patrolling when he's out of that range. So I'm going to save that, then go out. And then when it loads, down here it'll show the range array, and it'll show a size of 0. I want it to be two different range variables, so I'm going to make that a size of 2, and it'll show element 0 and element 1. Element 0 I want to set to something like -5, and element 1 I want to set to something like 5. So now if I click play, and you'll see in the patrol and the target, down right there, the patrol is enabled, but then when I get a certain distance away from the enemy, he'll start targeting. And he'll target until I get out of that range again, then he'll start patrolling again. So, that is how to set up an AI manager and how to make the enemy patrol and target depending on how close you are to him. join me next video where I will be setting up a health, so then the enemy can actually hurt the player. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and join me for the next Unity tutorial.